unlike our civilization today, which is in the process of destroying the last hunter-gatherer civilizations on Earth. Some members of our civilization, I'm very glad the way the election just went in Brazil, because we need to preserve the Amazon rainforest. It's madness to cut down the Amazon rainforest and turn it into soybean farms. You know, our civilization today has no respect for nature, no respect for hunter-gatherers, who are people with an enormous store of knowledge of how to survive on this planet. I think that the ancient civilization I'm talking about had great respect for its roots, for its origins in hunter-gatherer civilizations. And that's why I don't think they contaminated them too much. They stayed away from them and pursued their own path once they'd achieved these levels of technology.
You often talk about the use of LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar and how they've uncovered these structures, and
it's astonishing.
That the ancient Amazon rainforest was filled with massive civilizations.
Yes, absolutely no doubt about it now.
Is it possible that these massive civilizations were also advanced, and through the use of pharmacology, the same way we understand how to synthesize DMT and synthesize various psychedelic drugs, that's how they learned?
Yes, it's perfectly possible that there is science in the hunter-gatherer mode of life, and that they applied that science. The Amazon is not entirely a natural product. The Amazon is a human-made garden. The trees in the Amazon that produce food are hyperdominant. That didn't happen by accident. That happened because human beings made that happen. They created this incredible, we still don't understand it fully today, the terra preta, the black earth, which is immensely fertile, which reproduces its own fertility through bacteria in the soil. There are still patches of terra preta all over the Amazon, and settlers in the Amazon seek them out to plant in. Again, this is evidence of science. There were cities in the Amazon. Populations of 100,000 or more have been now revealed in the Amazon. It was a completely different from what we imagine it to be. And it used to be 7 million square kilometers. About 2 million square kilometers have been cut down by our rapacious, short-sighted, idiotic civilization. But 5 million square kilometers are left, and we're just beginning to get a hint of what's underneath them as a result of LiDAR, this technique like light imaging and detection ranging, which flies. You can fly a plane over a section of rainforest, and without damaging anything, you can see what's underneath that rainforest. And what's underneath it is gigantic geometrical structures, huge squares, circles, a circle surrounded by a square, just enormous constructions that you would not expect to find hunter-gatherer civilizations having made, and yet there they are in the Amazon. I've had occasion to this is one of the recent sciences on this. I've had occasion to meet a few billionaires, and I've tried to say to them, if you want to do some good with your money, put it into a major LiDAR survey of the Amazon, because right now only a tiny section of the state of Acre in Brazil has been surveyed by LiDAR, and what's come out of there, they're even finding pyramids in the middle of the Amazon. And then once they're found, archaeologists can go to them and have a look at them. Put some money into a proper LiDAR survey of the entire Amazon, and our whole idea of the past of the human species may change. And that comes back to my point. 5 million square kilometers in the Amazon, hardly studied. 27 million square kilometers of submerged continental shelves, hardly studied. 9 million square kilometers of the Sahara Desert, hardly studied. And yet archaeology claims to know the whole story of our past. Ridiculous. They can't know the whole story of the past while so little of the planet remains, so much of the planet remains untouched by archaeology. And why does it remain untouched? Well, partly it's very expensive to go do archaeology in the Sahara or in the Amazon, and partly because archaeologists are convinced that they're not going to find anything there. Well, LiDAR is breaking that myth. It's showing us that there is something to find in the Amazon. And I would urge any good-hearted billionaire who wants to see some real changes in our understanding of the past to put some money into LiDAR surveys. I know a number of the archaeologists who are doing this, a guy called Marty Partinson, for example. Very, very, very important work, but they're doing it on tiny funds. They need more funding in order to survey the whole Amazon. And I think if the whole Amazon is surveyed, it's going to radically change the way we view our past.
One of the problems is that both in archaeology and geology is the focus on a very limited, specialized site. You will have archaeologists that will spend a decade excavating one site, and obviously they're going to know more about that site than anybody, far and away. What seems to be lacking, and the same with geologists, you'll have geologists who will spend years examining one site, one geological outcrop, determining the lithologies, the petrology, the sedimentary sequence, the ages, and they can tell you all about that site. What's missing, though, is the big picture, the integrating these different parts and these sites. And really, this is where there's room for those who are not super specialized to come in and try to come up with some kind of a coherent model that can link these sites together into a big picture, the panorama, the grander panorama. I'm thinking of the Al Goodyear. Mm-hmm. Down at
Tupper.
Tell a little bit about Al and what he told us.
Al is an archaeologist, and he was, for a long time, there was a dogma in archaeology, a true dogma, that there were no human beings in the Americas until 13,000 years ago. Let's say 13,400 years ago. And they called them the Clovis culture. And the dogma was called Clovis first, that there were just no human beings here before Clovis. And Al was excavating a site called Topper, looking for Clovis materials, but then he did what other archaeologists didn't do. They dug below the Clovis layer. And below the Clovis layer,
people kept asking him, well, what's below it?
What's below it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And when he dug below it, he found more evidence of humans going back tens of thousands of years before Clovis, going back 50,000 years. Like so many archaeologists who've broken the mold and found evidence that confronted the dogma, he was shunned by his colleague.
What was this evidence that he discovered?
Evidence of human presence in the Americas. Artifacts, objects, 50,000 years ago. I'm not saying artifacts of a high civilization. I'm just saying evidence that humans were here.
Yeah.
That this dogma that there
Spear
were no
points.
Yeah, that there were no humans in the Americas until 13,000 years ago. That dogma locked the archaeology of the Americas in a single place for 40 or 50 years. And every single archaeologist, Jacques Cinq-Mars at Bluefish Caves in the Yukon, for example, who found evidence of humans 24,000 years ago, every one of them suffered. Their research grants were pulled away from them. They were shunned at conferences. They were insulted by their colleagues. But as time passed, they were proved to be right. And this is the important issue.